Alright, I know what some of you are already thinking. Wait a minute. Since when did TJ review Revoltech toys? Well, you know what? I can't just stick to Kamen Riders and Transformers. Every now and then, something else catches my eye. And with a box this gorgeous, how could it not? So this will be my first Revoltech review. The Skeleton Army figure from their Sci-Fi Revoltech line. And as I said, I just wanted to begin with a picture of the box because, good lord, how awesome does that look? How can you not see this on a toy shelf and know that you are going to get something awesome inside? But you didn't come to look at the packaging, you came to look at the plastic inside. So, let me get to that. Everyone grab your shotgun and run to the shelter. The zombie apocalypse has begun, and it begins with the Revoltech Skeleton Army figure. Look at this thing. For as long as I can remember, video games and cartoons have used living skeletons as generic enemies. I can remember seeing them for as long as I've ever been able to watch a television set. But none of the ones that actually had toys were done properly. This is the first time I've ever seen a skeleton toy that got it dead on. And of course this came from Jason and the Argonauts of 1963, which is the skeleton that made it cool to use a skeleton as a generic enemy. Let's get a good look at this guy because he warrants as much of a look as possible. We start with the skull. Look how creepy this thing is. This void black sockets in the eyes. A lot of subtle paint applications to give it this worn, stuck-on dirt look. It definitely looks like it just crawled out of its grave. There's so much going on here. You can see each individual bone making up his spine. You can see all the little cracks where all the bones of his skull have fused together. Everything on here. I mean, there's so much going on. You can see the rib cage. All the ribs pretty much as separate as they could manage. There's very little cheating going on here. All these hollow ribs all the way through. You can see the shoulder blades on the back, all the way down to the pelvic bone and the tailbone. All of the detailing. You can see the paint job is remaining constant this entire time. See all the detailing here. I mean, it's bone. So there's not a whole lot of detailing you can get. You can get to the intricate parts like the hands here, and you can see these forearms do have a gap in them as well. So anywhere they can make it look like a real bone, they did. You can also see it here in the shin bones as well, which is connected to the knee bone. The knee bone's gonna... Okay, you knew that joke was coming. I apologize. You've also got the foot with all the little tiny bones in there, all intricately molded and very lovingly painted individually. What couldn't be molded separate was painted to look separate. So no matter what, the effect comes off extremely well. But that's where Revoltech goes one step further, because Revoltech is known for its joint system. Little tiny ratcheted joints that give a ton of movement and articulation. You can see plenty of movement in the shoulders, and this is thanks to the Revoltech joint system. These are little tiny friction joints that they look like ball joints, but they're actually hinges. So you do have to be very delicate with this guy. These joints are very tiny, and if you're a little too rough, they will separate off because it's mostly friction holding the thing together. But you do get a wide range of motion out of them, and they are very firm, much firmer than a ball joint when they're posed. In fact, the only ones I really have a problem with on mine are in the spinal column. This is a finicky little figure because of the bone, but if you're careful, it is worth it. Everything on here. You got joints exactly like that in the elbows, twice in the neck, one at the top, one at the bottom, twice in the spine, in the hips, in the knees. You've got them in the ankles. All of these rotate and all of these hinge. The one thing you have to be careful of, let me see if I can find a really good joint to actually show this on. You see how it's separated there? Even though it's shaped like a ball joint, you have to remember it's a hinge. Look for these little gaps in the joints. This will tell you which direction it's okay to move. It's usually okay to swivel unless there's some real resistance, But otherwise, follow that. Don't try and bend it anywhere in any direction other than what that divide indicates. If you need it pointed some other direction, gently turn it. But other than that, you've got a pretty solid figure here with really good jointing that's going to give you a lot of posable detail. And this is before I even get to the accessories. Take a look. You've got a number of different hands to pick from here. You've got 2 different splayed open hands where you can definitely see all those intricate bones and molded detailing in there. And of course you've got 2 hands for holding weaponry, since the skeletons from Jason and the Argonauts were undead warriors. So what kind of weapons do you get with them? Well, the main one is this huge spear, which you see I've already attached 1 holding hand to. It's pretty much standard, just like any other Japanese toy. Grab both parts, twist and gently pull to remove, and then plug on the hand of your choice. This results in weaponizing your skeleton. The spear is a very nice one for display, and I generally find these to be very dynamic for poses, more so than a sword or a shield. Well, that's probably good because we get swords and we get shields. This is the main one I like. You get the big lion head on there, big open mouth. There is a worn look to the paint on this, to give it that aged and battle-worn look. It's a really nice paint job. There's another one, which I will show you later, but the main reason I want to show you this one is this extra arm accessory. You have to plug it in the same way you plug in the wrist, except do it at the bicep. Now this itself, in order to actually attach it, you actually need to gently slide this bone, this arm, underneath the strap and then peg it into place, both with the handle he's holding and the peg that fits into the back of his hand. That's going to hold it nice and secure, and it's not going to go anywhere. So you can give him that, or you can give him the sword weapon, which, in this case, in order to actually attach this, since it has the little stump here on the bottom, twist the handle and pull from the blade. Then you just simply peg it in around his hand. So it's pretty easy to give him this weaponry. It's pretty easy to switch up the hands. And you do get a ton of options with all of this put together. But this is a ton of stuff. What exactly do you do with it when it's not in use? Well, you could use this. This is a Revo container that comes with all modern Revoltech toys. They stack up nicely and have little air holes so you don't kill bugs trapped in there. But it does make a nice place to put all your spare hands when not in use. But luckily, this toy does not require such things. So why they had this in there, I'm not quite sure. But what they do have is probably one of my favorite things about this toy. One of the big elements to this toy I wanted to talk about was the display stand, and to put it lightly, it is a robust little stand. Look at the detailing that they fit in here. I mean, you've got all that different molded and texture detailing for the dirt alone. They sculpted the dirt well. And a lot of different variants in color to give it a lifelike effect. You can see the same on the stone here on the side, where all the edges are worn away like age has corroded them. It looks really, really nice. Such very subtle paint effects, really setting it off and giving it a good look. The column done exactly the same way. It looks worn, and it's got the molding to look that way, but they were sparing on the details, so at least as far as the paint goes, which actually gives it a newer look than the stone it's laying on top. And the cracks and this shattered piece of the column is a little bit more new, so it's not quite got the age of the others. There's a lot of attention to detail with this thing, and oh yeah, there's more skeletons underneath. You've got one that's still buried in the dirt. He's still very well painted and detailed though, no more so than the main figure, including the cracks in the head. And then we have this guy, almost halfway out. This is why it's the skeleton army figure, because technically there are 3 of them in this set. But this one is special, and it's why this is such a cool display stand, because he's actually articulated. Now, it's very basic, it's rudimentary. You've got a neck articulation. The jaw can move up and down, so you can open and close it. Nothing on the elbow, but the shoulder can fold downward as well as rotate, and you've got a hinge here on the wrist to move it up and down. So it doesn't do a whole lot, and in fact the one Revoltech joint it has at the shoulder is quite limited by the column behind him. But that's not the point. The point is this adds so much, and excuse the term considering the toy I'm reviewing, it adds a lot of life to the display stand. What is normally just meant to hold a toy up is its own toy in a way, and it adds so much character to this entire piece. And also I love the back of it, because that's where you get to store all of the extra hands and weapons from the main skeleton. But the way it's done up, you've got this black abyss where all of these skeletal hands are reaching out to take your soul down into the depths of Hades. And one of them's holding a spear for some reason. It still looks really creepy, and in a weird way you could display this on either side and it would still look awesome. As you can see, you do have little peg holes on the inside of the column for all of his hands, and if you put one of the holding hands in him, he can hold the spear or a sword if you want. The extra shield is stored here. You can see the great octopus detailing and paint job they put on that. It's nice and worn look, so it has some age to it. And there's where the sword can be displayed as well. It all makes for a very nice storage piece from any angle. I'm just blown away by how well done this piece is. When normally this is the kind of thing that gets so overlooked. And one of the coolest things is that this sword is exactly the same mold as the other one, which means if you so choose, you can remove it from the hand of the skeleton, and now your main skeleton figure can dual wield his swords. Dual sword wielding skeletons, that is beyond awesome. For being such a scrawny little thing, this toy does nothing but amaze me. Yes, you have to be delicate with it since it is so spindly and the joints are so small, but as long as you are careful, it makes an incredible piece with a ton of display options and a whole lot of fun just creeping out other toys with the living skeleton army. This thing is like ideal for troop building, and they very well know this because they are releasing a second version soon. So let me just tell you that this was provided by HobbyLink Japan and is the ideal place to get it, or if it's sold out by the time you're watching this, just wait for the second release. Either way, you cannot go wrong. And now I'm off to try and get to sleep with this thing staring at me the whole time. I'm not going to sleep very well tonight.